Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. Today we have Melanie Weires from GrowPath. She is the Business Intelligence and Implementation Analyst, and she is going to talk to us today about increasing revenue through insight-driven marketing analytics. Melanie, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and get started.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you all are in. I hope you're all doing really well today. So for today's presentation, I'm going to be covering the topic of how to increase revenue through insight-driven marketing analytics. I'll take you through the entire process from initial marketing to case settlement, including how to start working with marketing analytics so you can benchmark marketing results, as well as firm and staff performance in order to streamline operations and, of course, optimize ROI for your marketing channels to increase your revenue. I hope you're all seeing my screen. If you're not, somebody ping me here in the chat. But as part of today's presentation, we would like to take a little poll to start with. If you all could kindly respond to these three poll questions that we have, we would like to get a sense for whether you are currently tracking your marketing channels to full capacity, whether you currently use marketing analytics to make informed business decisions, and whether you currently calculate and know your marketing ROI. So that should pop up on your screens for you to respond to, but I'll go ahead and keep going with the presentation while you're responding to that. When I attend presentations, I really often, want to know why on earth I should actually listen to the person who is presenting. So I wanted to include a little bit about my professional background and achievement. As was discussed, I'm the business intelligence and implementation analyst for GrowPath. So I'm not used to giving presentations. So you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little bit nervous today. I haven't given a presentation in a while. But basically, business intelligence analyst actually is a fancy term for I look at and analyze data all day. I call myself a data nerd. I love data. I love working with it. I love bringing insights to our customers here at GrowPath. In practical terms, it really just means that I assist firms in migrating their data into GrowPath in a way that allows me to build reports to help analyze the firm's data and make informed business decisions from the results of that data. So I'm actually the former CMO, COO at a multi-location, multi-state personal injury law firm, where I was able to assist that law firm in creating year-over-year increases in revenue, including almost tripling it within a 2-year period. So I'm now bringing those insights to GrowPath to you all via my work. So with that said, technology is really not a silver bullet. Just because you have state-of-the-art software, it does not mean that your firm is going to be successful, even if that technology is GrowPath. Technology is only one pillar of a three-legged stool. At GrowPath, we have a philosophy, a triangle of success, a three-legged stool, if you will, which is a common business analogy. Without one leg of the stool, that stool is going to fall over. So for GrowPath, that triangle of success encompasses people, processes, and technology. In order to capture the data you need for analyzing and making informed business decisions and marketing decisions, you also need good processes and people. Because as Dr. W. Edwards Deming said, a bad process will beat a good person every time. The same thought applies to technology. Your people capture the data via technology through your processes. So without all of those in place, you won't even be able to apply the rest of this presentation. So Eric Sanchez actually gave a really great presentation about the triangle of success at PILMA 2020 in New Orleans back in June. So if any of you were able to attend that conference and hear this presentation, it is definitely a really great presentation. I'll give you a link to it at the end of this presentation so you could go look at it later, but it's definitely informative and something that you would for sure want to view. But back to the subject at hand, my question is, are you using reporting to make business decisions based on statistical results, or are you using a gut feeling for what marketing channels you should be advertising on? Gut feelings aren't always a bad thing, but you probably shouldn't base business models and decisions on gut feelings alone. So if you are looking at reporting results from your current software system, do they tend to look something like this? Honestly, these are the types of reports that I see most often from customers that come over to GrowPath. They're very common throughout the law firm industry, but they're not necessarily that effective when it comes to helping run a business. They don't provide the insights and analysis that you would need to make informed and actionable business decisions. Your reporting should be first and foremost informative and actionable, so you can get better results and increase your revenue. You have a business need, which is to increase volume and revenue, just like every other law firm that's on this presentation, every other law firm that's out there. So your technology should allow you to collect data, analyze it, predict outcomes, identify a solution, and ultimately make an informed decision to help fit your business need. Most firms aren't using their current intake and case management platforms to full effectiveness, let alone leveraging the ability to capture the data or even use the data itself. I really like this graphic because when I came to the firm that I was at previously, we were very weighed down by paper. Everything was in a paper file. It wasn't in a system where it could be easily accessed or tracked or analyzed. But let's say that you are. Let's say you have your people, your processes, your technology optimally set up, and you have data points that you can leverage for business intelligence, which is providing you with meaningful and actionable data. Well, how do you leverage it? Business intelligence isn't just about pretty charts and graphs. Those sell products for tech companies, including GrowPath. Look, I include these charts and graphs in the reports that I build for our customers, but those charts and graphs won't do a thing for you, and they won't make your firm better unless you do something with that information. Let's look at a case study. So here we have an example of firm-wide growth rates charted out comparatively year over year for both intake and case volume. Intake is on the top in purple, cases on the bottom in blue. The pivot tables on the right-hand side represent the same information as the pretty charts and graphs. Some people like them visually in the charts and graphs. Other people like the pivot tables. When I'm building a report, I always try to include both. But each widget includes the raw numbers as well as the growth rate percentage over time. So just to draw attention to it, up here, this number, this 2.19K or this 2.57K, that's the raw volume number. And then these are the growth rate percentages as compared to the previous year's volume. So you'll see these charts throughout the next examples. These charts are simple, yet they arm you with the knowledge to be able to compare your results for specific timeframes and set benchmarks to ensure your firm continues to grow. This case study happens to be looking at data on a year-over-year basis, but we can slice and dice this to look at any time frame, including quarterly, monthly, weekly, or even daily, if you so chose, to help you set measurable goals. These charts should be used to benchmark the volume and the growth rates. And those firms that are already doing this have a distinct advantage because they're looking at this and monitoring it to ensure that they're still on track. Let's look a little bit closer at 2020 and 2021. Those results from this case study. So 2021 as compared to 2020 had a growth rate for both intake and case volume that was negative. Intakes went down almost 43%, while cases went down almost 50%. I'm sure as the firm principal, you should be asking yourself why. Well, the reason why is because this firm actually stopped all paid advertising during the pandemic based on a gut feeling that they needed to cut that in order to maintain budget. Had the firm been monitoring reports like this, they may have seen the dip in their growth rates and started their advertising again. For the firm that I was at, we did not stop our advertising. We kept it going, and we were able to maintain a positive growth rate for 2020 and 2021 for both intakes and cases. While it may have been seen as a risk based on a gut feeling to keep our marketing going, it wasn't. We were monitoring the numbers. I was monitoring the numbers. And for any firm that kept their marketing going, even if it was just simple, basic, top of mind awareness, general marketing, they were likely at an advantage and gained market share from those competitors who stopped marketing. Let's narrow this same case study results a little bit and just talk about television results only. For simplicity, we're going to say that all of the other variables, all the other parts were equal across the years. The firm was running on the same cable TV stations and the same day parts for all of those years. For this study, the TV campaign started in 2015. So naturally, that 2016 result as compared to 2015 is going to look great because you didn't have that advertising channel in 2014. So 2016, 65.7% growth rate is pretty fantastic. In this case study, the firm did not set a benchmark for growth rates specifically to television, but simply just had the philosophy, hey, any growth rate is a great growth rate, right? But let's look at the intake volume for 2017 compared to 2016. That volume went down to 36.2%, which is still fantastic. But if we keep looking, results continued to grow in 2018 and 2019, but they did start taking a dip. And you notice that dip when you look at the data in this way. Perhaps in this case, the firm's principal was looking at this and they just may have said to themselves, well, again, it's still positive. We're up from where we started. We're good. Let's let it ride. This is particularly true when you're looking at the raw numbers, because you can see up here at the top, it's continuing to grow. This is fantastic. These are great numbers, right? On the surface, they still keep climbing and it all looks good. But what if we look at the data in a different way and just a little bit deeper? If we look at it based on the change in growth rate from one year to the next, which is easily calculated using Excel or a calculator or another program, the growth rate went down by 17.3%. And that's the difference between 2018 compared to 2017, and then another 12.3% the next year. So cumulatively, by 2019, you've almost lost what you gained in that first year. And so it's really at this point when the firm should have presented these numbers to their TV sales rep. And it's likely at that point, the TV sales rep would have informed the firm about a trend toward live streaming services. At the conclusion of 2019 or during 2019, definitely would have been the optimal time to look at and change the marketing strategy and channels. But for this case study, they did not. And the numbers continue to dip in 2020. And then you see the negative growth rate. Some might think that it's understandable because 2020 was the pandemic, but that's really only looking at that at a single year, not the accumulation of all of the results across the entire year. So now it's the end of 2021. The growth rate's been negative for 2 straight years. You've completely lost that 65.7% growth rate you had the first year. This firm didn't set a benchmark to aim for, and they canceled all their marketing in 2020. So they lost a lot of market share to their competitors who didn't. Let's say the firm had noticed, let's play devil's advocate, say the firm had noticed the trend, and in 2019, they started having conversations with their marketing partners. Notice I said partners, because a true marketing partner should be checking in with you regularly and asking how your results are, and you should be sharing those results with them because you're paying them money. Advocating for information to ensure that you're on the channels that you need to be. They should be a partner. I've been a certified media buyer for almost 15 years. If they are not checking in with you, they're not a true partner. If they're contacting you once a year and giving you a PowerPoint and trying to sell you more, but not asking how the results are going, they're just trying to make money. They're not a true partner. Your television marketing rep would have told you at this point in 2019 about that trend toward live streaming services, which was affecting their results. So you can see this would have been a chart. If you're doing any sort of research on the side, you would have seen this as well. If you subscribe to any marketing newsletters, which I suggest maybe that you probably should, so that you can monitor any of these trends. But that PowerPoint that I was talking about before, that those sales reps come in with once a year, you should also be doing your due diligence too by keeping those every single year. And when they bring in that new packet of information with their viewership numbers, you should compare it to the year before so that you can see if there were any changes in viewership, any changes in their demographic information, because hopefully you're capturing demographic information in your case management system and looking at it to ensure you're on the right stations. So you should be looking at those packets and comparing that information. And the reason I say this is because a television rep or a radio rep is not going to come in and just say, yeah, our viewership is down, but you should still spend more money with us. They're never going to say that. So you have to do your own research and look and see what those true numbers are. So these are all variables you need to consider when analyzing marketing results. And if your rep isn't forthcoming with this information, there's probably a reason. But if you do have this information, again, you need to be looking at it, analyzing it often. If you're not looking at it monthly, then at least quarterly, and a bare minimum at least once a year. You should be adjusting your marketing spends based on actual results, and firms that are doing this are the ones that are at an advantage. They're capturing that market share and they're growing. There is a caveat that I do want to mention when you're looking at marketing results. You shouldn't just look at the specific channel results only, but analyze the information as a whole, meaning look at the results from other marketing sources that might be effective and do a comparison. Why? Well, because certain marketing channels are, when they're overlaid on top of other channels, you can see a direct effect from one channel to the next. So let's look at a different television example, not the same one that we were looking at before. If I'm looking at the results that can be tied directly to television, meaning intakes and cases where the marketing source in your case management system is specifically television. You capture this information in one of two ways. One is by asking potential clients how they heard about you and manually entering that, or via track marketing numbers that go into your system automatically. Let's say the results for TV are mediocre. But before I cut my TV, you can see that I would look at the results from other channels like internet. Why? Odds are that someone saw your commercial on TV, they heard you on the radio, they saw your billboard, and they're Googling you. And if you don't have Google Analytics on your website, I suggest you do. It's free. There are a ton of studies out there that support this type of consumer behavior. This is what we call top of mind awareness. They're Googling you. They hear you on the radio, they Google you. And if I were to cut my TV marketing at this point because my television isn't as high as internet, I'm going to lose that market share. And you would see the results. And this is where sometimes you have to test. But if you turn your TV off and your internet results go down, you know why. These are things you need to be thinking about in order to run your business. GrowPath's Power Business Intelligence platform is so powerful that if you get your run schedule from the TV station or the radio station, you know, the dates and times, the schedule that you ran, we can actually take that information. We can put it into our Power BI platform, and then we can analyze when your radio spot or your TV spot ran against when an intake was created. I mean, as a data nerd, I really think that's really cool. And that can definitely help you when you're looking at your results. But back to our case study. I wonder if anyone noticed the fine print at the bottom of the Insider Intelligence report, where they actually predict that by 2023, 163.4 million live video viewers will be in the US. They're actually using historical data to predict trends and forecasts for the future. So what if you were able to do that with your own data? It could probably look something like this, which would make analyzing whether you're trending toward the forecasted predictions easier. It would also make it easier to know when to have conversations with your marketing partners. So in this particular graph, you know, again, raw numbers up here at the top, your growth rate is overlaid. This faded purple area is the forecast for predictions on where your business could go in the future. You can see this trend line up here is actually well above that, which is awesome. That's where you want to see it. You don't want to see it closer to the actual trend line over here in the predictions or even below that. What GrowPath does well is we take large amounts of data, all of your historical data, and we use our Power BI system to chart it out in actionable ways using AI algorithms to analyze trends and predict future volume by forecasting for specific time periods. You'll notice that this chart actually is broken out by quarter instead of by year, which is what we were looking at before. And the reason for that is because in order to have the algorithms do their thing and be able to predict and forecast, we have to have a minimum of 30 data points in order to generate these predictions. So that's why it's important to be able to slice and dice your data in different time frames, because if we were to do this on a year-over-year basis, we wouldn't be able to get this forecasting, because there's not a lot of firms that have really, really, really good data for 30 years. And these analysis, these charts, they take time to build, and they're only as good as the data that you have in your system. So, day-to-day operations, your processes, you need to be ensuring that your staff is capturing this information. And GrowPath does that really well. We provide reports that help you, quote, curate, monitor, and make sure the data is in the system, because otherwise you would not be able to have these types of informative charts. Now, let's look at the same data set for the TV results that we were looking at before, but with the yearly results. What we're going to do is we're going to add one variable. We're actually going to look at the number of cases this time that were opened during the same time period, and the story is going to change dramatically. So let's say the firm wasn't looking at the conversion rates the entire time they were running their TV campaign. Unlikely, but it does happen. The intakes to cases conversion, they started looking at it in 2018, which is when they finally noticed that none of the intakes that were coming in were converting to cases. So the first instinct, of course, when you're looking at the conversion rate is, again, to cancel the TV marketing. But let's say the firm looked at the data in a little bit more comprehensive way. So by layering on case types, they noticed that the intake volume that was coming in was for case types they didn't even handle. As you can see, 56% of the results were for intake other, which isn't a core case type for this firm. They're a PI firm. The conclusion that can be drawn from this is that the firm needed to change the marketing messaging. Maybe the marketing messaging was too general and people thought that they could go get wills or divorces or help me with a traffic ticket. So the firm changes the messaging, and they still saw the same volume because they were actually on the right station. They were on the station for their demographic, but now they're seeing the volume for case types that they actually do handle. And that's awesome, except the firm still is not seeing the conversions from intake to cases. The story that data tells is that the firm needed to look at the people, the processes, and the technology, because the results were great. The firm was getting people to contact them at a good volume for the right case types, but they weren't converting, which means either the processes weren't there, the people needed more training, or the firm needed different people, or the technology was holding everything back. It could be one, two, or all of those things, which is why data is so important. The triangle of success, they all work together. So with this case study, in 2018, it was really the year of change for the firm. The firm hired a resource who looks at this data, manages it all, puts internal processes in place, hires the right people, and onboards with GrowPath, all in the same year. So the conversions weren't there for 2018, but you do see the impacts for 2019. Suddenly things are starting to look fantastic. The firm now has a benchmark for conversion rate. That rate is at least 13%. So you can use the reporting results to continue to analyze the technology, the people, and the processes to see if you can actually increase that rate. The firm could even benchmark against other peers, maybe using Pillman's resources to see if they're trending above or below industry averages. The firm can also set goals for individual employee performance. So again, in GrowPath's Power BI system, you can click on individual staff members' names, and you can get a conversion rate specifically to each one of those folks. Also remember, a bad conversion rate for a specific staff member may not be due to someone not working hard enough. Maybe they need additional training and development to optimize their performance. So you really need to be managing your folks' performances. At this point, you've benchmarked intake and case volume for the firm as a whole and for individual marketing sources, and possibly even at the individual employee level. All of this stuff takes time. But let's talk about benchmarking for attorney fee. Everything that we just went over in terms of volume numbers can be applied to attorney fees. So you should be seeing things like these charts up here. You can see the individual attorney fee is broken down by year, and then the corresponding growth rate. So you can see that the firm was operating with a negative growth rate for 3 straight years, and then suddenly, bam, doing great. You can also, not just monitor at the firm-wide level, but you can actually analyze and look at individual attorneys, and not just the raw numbers, not just the raw fees, but also the average fees. So it is worth mentioning that when analyzing data like this, you don't want to just look at the raw numbers for intake and case counts and attorney fees separately. You really want to look at them together, because there could be a scenario where the volume goes down, but your average attorney fee goes up. So those are also variables you want to keep in mind. GrowPath even goes so far as to provide analysis for these individual attorneys benchmarked against specific insurance carriers and adjusters. The caveat, obviously, is that you have to be tracking the data. You have to have the insurance provider and the adjuster in your system, be putting in demand amount, initial offer amount, settlement amount, attorney fee. They all need to be tracked in the system. And the other caveat is you obviously need to have enough data to be statistically relevant. So if you only have the insurance provider in there for 2 cases, probably not going to draw a whole lot of good conclusions from that, because the data would be limited. The final piece I'll leave you with is analyzing the marketing ROI specifically. So GrowPath helps you capture all relevant data, but it can also help you calculate ROI for marketing source and staff. I am just going to talk about the marketing ROI, but just know that the same rules apply for staff ROI. If you provide us with the cost, we can put it into our system and give you a report to analyze. So this is a different case study, but the firm provided us with a breakdown of the marketing expenses. We then layered on the data that they were putting into GrowPath to be able to calculate ROI from multiple data points. So what we're seeing here are the results for the firm as a whole based on the marketing spend and the results. So their ROI is fantastic. Like, that's kind of a number I've never even heard of. So, but we're able to provide this information. So if your technology is not able to provide you with this information, that's probably one of those pillars that you want to look at and reevaluate. You can also on this ROI report see all the staff that was associated with the case that in their contribution. So if I wanted to look at Lisa, paralegal Lisa's specific ROI, all I would have to do is click on that, click on her little piece of the pie in our chart, and it would filter the whole report to just her. So in addition to the staff, we can see demographic breakdowns, DMAs, specific marketing sources. In this example, the marketing expenses are tracked as a whole, but if you want to get very detailed, you can track your marketing spend to specific DMAs, simply, again, by clicking on that piece of the pie in the chart. So if you wanted to see Chicago, you would click on Chicago. So our reporting is dynamic. I know there's a lot of other systems out there that provide dynamic reporting, but again, if your current system doesn't provide this, super informative, actionable items that you would need. You probably need to reevaluate your technology. So let's take a closer look at the marketing ROI, but just for radio. When we narrow this report, we're going to get specific ROI for radio. And as you can see, this is just a different view. We clicked on radio. It's now 100%. Our spend is $500,000. This is our ROI based on how much money we've brought in. You can see the demographic information over here. Radio as a whole results primarily males in the New York DMA. So all super interesting, insightful information. GrowPath's Power Analytics system allows customers to narrow even more. So not just radio, because again, 85.95% results. But this has another variable. And if you looked really closely, we're now looking at only auto cases. So radio only, auto cases. You could get really granular and break out the radio spend by DMA, which might be a good idea. But the cool thing about this is, let me flip back to there. The DMA and the demographics now changed because we narrowed to just radio and just auto cases. So now you can see we've got some more females coming in from the Los Angeles area. So this information is super helpful for making informed decisions in different DMAs. So I know I said a lot. And as a follow-up from our earlier poll, we'd like to re-poll you all to see if you feel differently from how you answered these questions during the first portion to now. So if you pop that back up and you guys could respond, that would be awesome. And I'm actually going to open it up to questions now. Christina, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good. No questions have come through yet, and looks like about half the people have done the poll.
Awesome.
If you guys do have questions, there is the Q&A at the bottom that you can enter them through there, or you can send them right through the chat for us.
And my contact information is up here on the screen. That's the link to Eric Sanchez's PILMA presentation on people, processes, and technology. So you can just scan that QR code with your cell phone, and you should be able to pull up a link to that presentation. There's my GrowPath email, which is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Otherwise, you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
I'll give you guys about 30 more seconds to answer the survey, and then we'll go ahead and close that out. If you have any questions, please let us know.
I see a question coming in here. Yes, Mr. Sevenish, the ROI dashboard is something that I will build for you. Mr. Stevenish's question was, they're actually going live with GrowPath in September, and the ROI dashboard is something that we build and include. So I do see another question here. How do you track leads from the internet if they look at different your website from Google? Okay, so I think what this question is asking is, how do you track leads from the internet if they're looking at several different directories and maybe then eventually go directly to your website from Google? Some of it, so it depends. So if they go to your website and they submit a contact form on your website, that would typically come over directly into your case management system via the API and be tracked as an internet lead. One of the things that we did in our processes at the firm that I was at was our intake folks always asked the question on every intake, how did you hear about us? And we captured that secondary piece of information. And then myself as the marketing person, I would pull the results. So I would see the actual tracked marketing source, but then I would see any secondary marketing sources to that as well. And that's to my point, all of that, if you put the information into GrowPath, at least, that's all pullable into our dashboard reports. So you can see those layers. So if they heard you on the radio and they Googled you, they looked you up on directories, saw all your good reviews, but they still originated from hearing you on the radio, you would be capturing both because they came through on your website, but they also heard you on the radio. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to continue further that discussion.
Did you get Randall's second question that he had asked?
Yeah. Are you available for a discussion, or can we engage you personally to review our program? You can just feel free to send me an email directly. That's the best way to get in touch with me, and then how we work out the details from there. Email is definitely my GrowPath, mweires@growpath.com is the best way. And Mr. Sevenish, you should have my email address, but if you don't, I can shoot you an email after this. Let's see. Hi, Narissa. Can you build an ROI dashboard for us as well? Yes, I can. And again, if any of you have any more detailed questions or want to have a conversation, again, just shoot me an email. So, okay, so say you're starting from scratch and you're just beginning to use comprehensive analytics. How long would you run with a marketing plan before setting benchmarks going forward? So if you're starting from scratch on a specific marketing channel like radio, I usually tried to run at least a minimum of 3 months test, leaving all of the variables the same. So meaning you would run on a radio station that was aimed mostly, for the most part, at your demographic audience. So gender, maybe income levels, it would depend on how much data you're capturing from a demographic standpoint. But so I would run, again, at least 3 months. So running in the same day parts, on the same stations, on the same days of the week. And that's really your first benchmark test of what the results would look like. And then you start playing with moving and testing, maybe if we move to a different day part. And again, these are all things that you need to be monitoring. So as you're running through these, you're looking at the results and you're sharing those with your radio reps to see where you can tweak. But 3 months is definitely my minimum answer. Okay, I think that is all the questions that I'm seeing. So
yep. So just a reminder, the presentations will be available in the member resources or through your email after probably about 2:30 today, the email should go out saying that it's available in the areas. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions for Melanie at GrowPath, you can reach out to her via email or phone. They're right there on the presentation. And then, yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully you had a great time. It was a great presentation, Melanie. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks. Bye, guys.